I now wanted to look at this question from a more ethical, moral, and religious point of view. I knew one man and one man only who could do that justice. Cambridge graduate and my old religious studies teacher, Mr. Pepper, at Ripon Grammar School. So we decided to visit Ripon Grammar and interview him. First question today, I'm just going to ask, what is your general position on UK airstrike action in Syria?
The first thing I've got to say is I'm not sure, because we're not terribly informed, and I speak as a member of the public. I don't think there has been a decent debate about this, and it's very easy to fall down party lines. So I'm instinctively more left-wing than UKIP or the Conservatives. So it's clear what large parts of the Labour Party, for instance, feel. It's quite clear what the Guardian feels about it. But it's such a complex issue, there seems to be no simple moral or ethical solution to it.
In your opinion, what could be the best way to sort out such a significant threat from overseas terrorist groups such as Islamic State?
Okay, it's really tricky because on the one hand you have people who say that it's not our issue to get involved, that this is happening in another country, on another continent, and really it has nothing to do with Britain and we should stop play acting as if we're a world power. It's very complicated because to a large extent our oil requirements have led to what's happening in Syria. We've propped up Assad and his incredibly unpopular regime, as far as I understand it, and I might be mistaken, because whilst he is a kind of despotic ruler, he does guarantee us ready access to an essential resource for us. Those almost seem like competing obligations, and our solution, which is to drop bombs, doesn't seem to satisfy any of those.
Okay. I have to kind of talk about your background as maybe a Christian, your background in religious education. Looking at the just war theory, would you say that these airstrikes can be classified in any way as a just war act?
Right, great question. If you look at it from a just war angle, have the correct legal authorities signed it off? To some extent, because our representatively elected government has decided to opt for this. Some people would say that's not pure democracy and that the people haven't voted for it directly, but that would be quite strange, I suppose, to have a referendum on should we attack another country would be an odd way to go about sorting out foreign policy. So you could probably say that the legal authority is satisfied. Is it for the greater good? Hugely debatable, because no one can anticipate the consequences of military intervention or lack of intervention. Assad is clearly a figure that should be removed from power. ISIS are clearly a threatening group. Is military intervention going to secure the greater good? Maybe, if it manages to depose both of those. But that's hugely debatable.
People will probably disagree on the statement nowadays, but due to tradition, the UK is said to be a Christian country. Obviously, vast multiculturalism has sort of changed that in recent years. Would you say it's hypocritical for someone like David Cameron to sit down at Christmas and Easter time and spread messages of Christian well-being across the country and then turn to Parliament the next week to send airstrike?
My natural reaction is to agree with you. But Christianity has a flawed history with armed conflicts. If you read the New Testament, there are a couple of ambiguous quotes where Jesus seems to suggest, and he directly says, I have not come to bring peace but a sword. His followers were armed. We know that because when he gets arrested in the Garden of Gethsemane, Peter has a knife with him and attacks one of the servants. So he's really clear that violence is not going to be a solution, and he says that those who live by the sword die by the sword.
Final question. Obviously, it's really hard to say, but nobody knows how long our airstrike involvement will be in Syria. It could kind of dissolve over the next few years, or it could only kind of gather speed. Do you potentially think that this could lead to troops on the ground and further involvement, further intervention in countries like Syria?
Yeah, definitely. I remember the Iraq War began in 2003, I think. So I was roughly your age. when that started. And to all intents and purposes, it's still rumbling on, isn't it? I mean, the Americans have pulled out, the British have pulled out, but the war has not reached its conclusion. The aftermath has bubbled on so long. The initial mission might have concluded after a few months, but Iraq is still not a safe or sensible place to visit. Likewise, Afghanistan, that has rumbled on and on and on. Who's to say that this won't?
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much for talking to us today. Appreciate that.
No worries.
That's great.
An issue that came up in both interviews that should be explored in quite a bit of detail is actually the cost of these airstrikes. It was a particular issue for David Simister, our county councillor, and he said any cost at all is a significant one to the taxpayer, especially when they are not the ones who've directly voted for such air action. I'm going to now break down the costs of each airstrike. Okay, so according to a Ministry of Defence report to Parliament in 2010 regarding the first round of Syrian airstrikes, each Tornado flight costs around £35,000 an hour. Typically, 2 Tornadoes fly together in one mission, lasting between 4 and 8 hours. So let's land somewhere in the middle. We'll go for a 6-hour mission, costing a basic £210,000. You then have to account for the missiles, the add-ons, the extra costs that are going to come with bombing a country. The expected payload would be 4 paveway bombs, that's £22,000 per bomb, plus 2 brimstone missiles, a specific type of missile, at £105,000 per unit. Let's just say that's around £508,000 per aircraft in total, just over £1 million per mission.